I'm here to present the Social Design Institute Manifesto, which are the areas that we would like the Social Design Institute to sort of have as its grounding areas to look into. So the first one we came up with as a group is language, and this contains all of the shortcomings and sort of what sustainability language does well, and it would allow us to share sort of experiences between our research in a better way. And so this includes language misuse, for example, where sometimes sustainability language is appropriated for greenwashing or for different purposes to suit certain agendas. It also includes just shortcomings when you're trying to find a word for something and you can't quite find it, to sort of expand the vocabulary of social design thinking, as well as just gaps, which is similar, so concepts that are not currently covered by the current language. And then also the digital versus verbal language. So we're now moving to we have moved to a more digital age where we communicate using things like emojis and messages, etc. And how does that also come within the language of sustainability? And the second point on our manifesto is challenging both large-scale and individual notions, so the transformation of the self and basically the bigger system. And what is the unit of analysis when we're looking at something? So there's two categories of self-change and then of the system changing. And then the third one, which we actually all agreed is more of an overlying theme as opposed to just the third point on our manifesto, but it is the third point, is connectivity. So it's this idea that basically things have spillover effects, but also we're all connected as individuals, and it's the sort of underlying theme of basically social design in general. And the fourth one we have is identity and value systems. So this idea of the individual versus the collective again, but on an identity level, not just on a change or a material level. So basically, do we think of ourselves as an individual and how we want to express ourselves and our fashion choices, or do we think of the collective and sort of the wave that we're going into in terms of material and social and also kind of intellectual change altogether? And then our fifth one, so ongoing, they become a lot more practical and pragmatic because we started to think about how do we want to apply and how do we want to make a lot of these ideas more concrete. So the fifth one is drivers of change. So we started to think about how, once we do have findings or ideas, how do we organize? And we thought that the best way is to sort of look at lessons learned from different movements in the past. So both socially, politically, what are the trajectories available when we come to a sort of a research outcome? Where do we take it? And then the sixth one is information dissemination and communication in a two-way stream. So it's the idea of hearing from different people across the community, so cross sections, not just sort of one part of the community. And it's the idea of having a two-way, bottom-up communication way where we sort of gather information, but also disseminate if something has become solid knowledge or fact. So a practical example here is the fact that plastic is harmful. It's good to get it out there so that everybody at every level can act, but also we can hold certain groups accountable to that, like the government to ban plastic, for example. And that only happens with information and with having that information. And then we have wellness and mental health. So this is both in terms of human-centered design, so creating things that basically benefit humans, but also a very big but, not just that, but in a way that is immersive with nature and doesn't put us as humans in a way that privileges or advantages us so much over nature. So it's kind of a hand-in-hand approach. And with that, there needs to be a peace and acceptance of our current state and the status quo. We need to be under no illusions as to what the state of the world is, but to sort of understand what we have come to. And that expands to how we relate as well to non-human objects and the environment. So a big part of our world now is digital. We talked about noise pollution, about digital footprints, about human emotions and how those can also create sort of impacts as well. So sort of just the non-material as well, and how we relate to that in terms of social design as well. And our last point on the manifesto is impact. So taking everything into account, how do we apply, and then how do we measure sort of the outcomes of social design? So that's what we had. Yeah.